In every Final Fantasy, we have a protagonist, a leader of the group, a main character that we control. We go through trials and tribulations with them. Sometimes we might relate to them, sometimes we might not. But in today's video, we are ranking the mainline Final Fantasy protagonists. So with that all being said, what is up guys, Jen here, hope you're doing well. Welcome back to the channel. As always, got you covered with timestamps, so if you want to skip to a certain Final Fantasy protagonist to see where I rank it, feel free to do so. Just don't skip to the end of the video, have a look at the final list and go, hold on, what's this all about? Because you won't have any context of how I got there. But again, whatever floats your boat, all I ask is for you to support the channel, hit the thumbs up button, and if you want to stick around for some more Final Fantasy content, you're in the right place, hit that subscribe button. So let's dive straight in to the tier list. Here they all are, the Final Fantasy protagonists. You will notice that Final Fantasy XI and Final Fantasy XIV are missing. These are online games and the characters are kind of you. I just didn't want the complications of ranking them. So I'm going to start off at the beginning with Final Fantasy I. The Warrior of Light. Okay, the sprite I've got here, you can see it's the more up-to-date version. It isn't the warrior or whatever job we choose to control in Final Fantasy I. But Final Fantasy I's protagonist, the Warrior of Light, there isn't much personality. We are just essentially a character that goes across the world to save it. There isn't much story development. I don't think the Warrior of Light is a great, strong protagonist, so I'm going to put it in C. Not much reason behind it. So now we're going to move on to our Final Fantasy II protagonist in Firion. And this is the first character that has a bit of backstory. Not too much of a backstory, but a backstory nonetheless. And I don't think it's the strongest. I don't think it's the worst. So I'm going to rank Firion above the Warrior of Light in C. Let's move on to Final Fantasy III, and this is again kind of the same scenario as the Warrior of Light, but if you play the DS version, maybe you might have a different opinion. I've not played the DS version, I've only played the Pixel Remaster version. I think I might have touched the DS version, but I'm more akin to what happens in the Pixel Remaster, which is the closest to the NES original. And again, it's kind of like the same scenario as the Warrior of Light here, but I do think it's probably a little bit stronger than the Warrior of Light, because I think we still get a couple of dialogue boxes, right? If I'm not mistaken. So for that reason, we're going to put the Onion Knight in the C tier. It's all C so far because we're still on the C. We're on the subject of Cecil. I don't know if that was a good segue, but we're going to roll with it. Cecil, what a character. I really like Cecil. Cecil starts off as like the bad guy, but we can see that as time goes on, he's realizing what's going off around him. He's realizing what he's done is wrong. He probably heard the words of Mrs. Harvey, his mother, and thought, you know, I was brought up good. Cecilia brought me up good. And he obviously becomes the paladin. And he has a really strong story arc. Is it the strongest? I don't think it is, but it's definitely up there. We're going to put Cecil in A tier. Now we are moving on to Final Fantasy V with Bartz, or Bartz, or whatever you want to call him. I feel with Final Fantasy V and Bartz here, is that he is a good character, but I think he's a good character because of the cast he has behind him. I think the journey he goes on, we get a few snippets of his backstory, of course his father being quite pivotal to the plot, but again, I think it's the cast behind him that really oomps his character. So I'm going to put Bartz or Bartz in B, and that wasn't planned. We're going to move on to Final Fantasy VI, and we're going to talk about Terra. Now Terra, I think, is a very strong protagonist. She is a good, strong protagonist in a Final Fantasy game, but I personally feel that she does get overshone by Celeste quite a bit. In my opinion, I know maybe some people won't think that, and some people might think that maybe when it comes to the story of Final Fantasy VI, that we do have the backstory of Terra and where she's come from and her father and just the overall arc and the whole stuff like that. But I do think that Celeste, to me, is the main character to Final Fantasy VI. That's my opinion. But it doesn't dismiss what Terra brings to the table. I think she's a strong protagonist. And she's going to be behind Cecil in A. So we now move into Final Fantasy VII with Cloud Strife. When it comes down to it, Cloud has quite an extensive story. We go through it with him. He has lost his identity. He thinks he is Zack Fair to a certain degree. And we get that layers of development with him. Obviously, we get to see all of the emotions from him with other characters, the way he reacts with Tifa, the way he reacts with Aerith, the way he acts with Barrett, the way he acts with Sephiroth. There's so many aspects. And I think Cloud was a character, especially in my teenage years, that I got to understand just a little bit more as time went on. So for that reason, again, these are personal opinions and feel free to debate about it in the comment section down below. But Cloud Strife is going in S tier. Final Fantasy VIII Squall Leonhart. Now, I have gone into detail while I've talked about Final Fantasy VIII when I've played it, that when I first played Final Fantasy VIII, I thought Squall was a moody bastard. I thought he was a very moody bastard with the whatevers, and we can go on days talking about the way the things are translated, but we're talking about what we played. It doesn't matter about the story behind the translation or anything like that. He, to me, when I first played it, was like just a guy that didn't care. But as time went on, and as I got older, I dealt with my own mental struggles, and then I replayed Final Fantasy VIII. This guy is probably the most relatable character to me when it comes to Final Fantasy. I get it. I understand. And as a leader, he does the deed. He does what he needs to do. And he really is, in my mind, a very strong protagonist in Final Fantasy. So for that reason, he is also going in S, but he is going in front of Cloud Strife. So let's move on to Final Fantasy IX with Zidane Tribal. Now, Zidane is a weird one because he's kind of like a happy-go-lucky character. For the majority of the game, it's not till the latter half that we get to explore a few more emotions, dive a little bit deeper into his past and where he's come from and his relationships with certain characters. But he does have a certain amount of charm to him. I think he's a nice, fun Final Fantasy protagonist. And much like Bartz, I think Zidane is also lifted up because of the team around him. So I'm thinking Zidane, I'm like, shall I put him in high B or shall I put him in A? And I think I'm going to put him in A. I think he is not stronger than Cecil and Terra, but he is strong nonetheless. I do like Zidane. Now, Final Fantasy X with Tidus, Tidus, whatever you want to call him. I'm sure that's a debate in itself. But this is a character where we are thrown into the role alongside him. We are thrusted into this new world with him. We're experiencing it with him. The changes of what he experienced at the beginning of the game through all the way to the end. It's quite an emotional arc. Final Fantasy X is very emotional when it uses its themes in relationships, romance, and everything else in between. But when it comes to Tidus as a character, like the strongest, I feel like he's on par with like maybe Terra, if I'm gonna be looking at it. I don't think he's S tier. I think he's A, but I don't know whereabouts in A I want to put him. I think I am gonna put Tidus in A tier, in front of Terra and behind Cecil. Do I want to change that? I don't think I do. I think that's what we're gonna stick with. Okay, Final Fantasy XII and Vaan. Is he the leading man? The ongoing debate. I think it's highly over-exaggerated that Vaan isn't the main character of Final Fantasy XII. But saying that, I've just had the discussion of Final Fantasy VI where I feel like Celeste is the main character to me. So maybe there are a lot of people that think Balthea is the main character to Final Fantasy XII. So I can't dismiss that. I really can't dismiss that. But I don't think he's a strong main character nonetheless. If you do look at him as a main character, the protagonist, he has story, but he's more of a background. It's more of like a team effort when it comes to Final Fantasy XII. And I'm thinking I'm going to put 12. I think it's in B. I don't, you know, it might even be C, you know. I'm trying to think here. You know, because he does have his moments. does have his moments. I think he's better than, obviously, our voiceless protagonists in 1 and 3. Is he better than Firion? Is he better than Bartz? You know what? I'm going to put him in B. I'm going to put him in B. That's what we're sticking with. So let's move on to Final Fantasy 13 and Lightning. Lightning as a character, you know, she has a strong story arc. We're not going to talk about 13-2 and Lightning Returns, even though that does add to her character. Let's try and just analyze her in Final Fantasy 13. And she's trying to find a sister. She's going against this thing. She gets branded as a Lucis, and she goes through it and all these trials and tribulations. You feel that, you go alongside her for that. Though there are some really strong contenders that have come before her. I don't think she's strong as Squall. I don't think she's as strong as Cloud. I don't think she's as strong as Cecil. I don't think she's as strong as Tidus. I don't think she's as strong as Terra. I think she might be stronger than Zidane though. I think, ooh, where do I want to put her? I think I want to go for a strong B. She has got qualities about her. She's a strong protagonist. Maybe there was a few things that I wasn't as relatable as the other characters here. And I think obviously that does play into the tier list, right? It's a personal tier list. So that's where I'm rolling with. She is going in the B tier. So next is Final Fantasy 15 with Noctis. And I was one of those players when it came to Final Fantasy 15 that couldn't get to grips with the story at first. I was one of those that got really into it once the Royal Edition came out. And I consumed the Kingsglaive media, I consumed the Brotherhood media, but we're going to just move that to the side because we're concentrating on Noctis in Final Fantasy 15. And I like his arc, I really do. I think he's very strong, and I think he's probably going to be bunched in here somewhere in A. And I'm thinking he is going to, you know what, I think he is going to be here. He is going to be in A tier, in front of Terra, and behind. You know what? I think Terra's got some qualities that are better than Noctis in my mind. There we go. That's where Noctis is going. And we're going to finish off with Final Fantasy 66. And we're going to finish off with Final Fantasy 16 in Clive Rosfield, the latest entry. I know that my head is covering the C tier. You already know who's there. Look, we've got Firion, Onion Knight, and we have the Warrior of Light. But where does Clive go? Clive is, oh man, I think when it comes to Clive, he really comes to life because of Ben Starr. Like, that is a very big redeeming factor that made me relate to Clive so much more. I think just the whole fact that the game is just Clive, he is the only character you're controlling, so you are getting a lot of Clive. And I think for that reason, like, he really resonated with me as a character as we went through all the side quests, and I did them all twice. I listened to that dialogue and just the way he interacts with the characters and the way he just evolves over time. We get to see him in 3 life periods, like 3 different times of his life. So we really get to know this character, and I consumed it all and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I am thinking that maybe S is where I want him to be, or he's going to be high A. And you know what? I think I'm going to bite the bullet with this one, guys. I'm going to say that Clive is on my upper echelon of Final Fantasy protagonists. And there we have it. I'll move out all the way again, and you can see what we have here in our tier list ranking for the Final Fantasy protagonists. Now I throw the floor over to you. You can disagree with me, you can tell me how wrong I am, but I always have fun doing these things. I like the discussion. It's the reason why I do this. I want to get my opinions out there, and I want to hear yours, because maybe there is something I've missed along the way and we can pick up and I can reanalyze at a later date. Maybe we can do an up-to-date one, and maybe we can do something like that. I don't know, but again, the floor is yours. Let me know your opinions in the comment section down below. I appreciate your time for this video. There they are above me and behind me. Do you agree? Do you not agree? Very interested to see your thoughts. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side.